The Last Light, a meditative journey to the dying sun. In the infinite theater of space, where silence reigns absolute and darkness stretches beyond comprehension, there exists a story that speaks to humanity's deepest fears and grandest aspirations. The year is 2057, and the great furnace that has warmed Earth for over 4.5 billion years grows cold. The sun, that celestial heart upon which all life depends, begins its premature descent into darkness. This is not merely a tale of science fiction, but a meditation on the fragility of existence and the courage required to face the impossible. 8 souls journey through the cosmic void aboard a vessel called Icarus II, carrying with them the weight of every living thing on Earth. Their destination, the dying star itself. Their cargo, humanity's final desperate attempt to reignite the light that gives life meaning. As the mind prepares for rest, let this story unfold like starlight itself, slowly, gently, inevitably. In the space between waking and sleeping, between the known and the unknowable, consciousness drifts toward the greatest mystery of all, the delicate dance between darkness and light that defines existence itself. Chapter 1: The Dying of the Light. Far beyond the edge of human perception, in the nuclear furnace at the heart of the solar system, something has gone terribly wrong. The sun, that ancient giant of hydrogen and helium, begins to fail in ways that should not be possible for another 5 billion years. Deep within its core, where temperatures reach 15 million degrees and pressure crushes matter into pure energy, the delicate balance between gravity's inward pull and fusion's outward push has shifted. The stellar physicians of Earth have studied this phenomenon with instruments that peer into the very soul of their star. They observe the gradual dimming, the subtle changes in spectrum, the way solar wind carries less energy across the void. Computer models run for months on end, their calculations painting the same inevitable picture. Without intervention, the sun will fade to a cold, dark ember within decades, not eons. Photons born in the sun's core take thousands of years to reach its surface, bouncing endlessly through layers of plasma in their journey toward space. Each particle of light carries within itself the memory of nuclear fire, the essence of hydrogen atoms fused into helium under pressures that exist nowhere else in the solar system. When these photons finally emerge from the photosphere and race across 93 million miles of emptiness, they arrive at Earth as the golden light that feeds every living thing. But now, fewer photons make this journey with each passing day. The sun's luminosity, measured in the elegant units of stellar physics, drops by fractions of a percent annually. To most humans, the change remains imperceptible, hidden within the normal variations of weather and season. Yet scientists know that this gentle decline masks a catastrophic truth. The fundamental processes that have powered the sun since the formation of the solar system are shutting down. On Earth, the first signs manifest subtly. Global temperatures begin a gradual descent that no amount of greenhouse gases can offset. Weather patterns shift as the great atmospheric engines that drive wind and storm receive less energy from above. Plants photosynthesize less efficiently, their leaves turning toward a sun that provides insufficient nourishment. The intricate web of life that has evolved over billions of years begins to show stress fractures that will, if unchecked, grow into complete collapse. The most brilliant minds of humanity have proposed numerous solutions, each more desperate than the last. Massive space-based mirrors to concentrate and redirect the sun's weakening light. Fusion reactors built on a scale never before imagined. attempting to replace the star's own output. Underground cities powered by geothermal energy, designed to preserve human civilization through an endless nuclear winter. Yet only one plan offers the possibility of addressing the problem at its source. Deep in the archives of theoretical physics, researchers have found equations that suggest a possibility so audacious it borders on fantasy: the artificial reignition of stellar fusion through massive external intervention. The physics are sound, the mathematics elegant, but the practical challenges are beyond anything humanity has ever attempted. The mission requires a nuclear device unlike any ever constructed, not a weapon of destruction, but an instrument of creation. This stellar bomb must carry the mass of a small mountain, compressed into a payload dense enough to trigger fusion reactions within the sun itself. The engineering challenges alone would require the combined resources of every nation on Earth, every brilliant mind, every ounce of human ingenuity focused on a single impossible goal. Now, close your eyes and picture how all of this might look. The sun hanging in space like a dimming ember, its surface churning with magnetic fields and plasma storms, while 8 billion kilometers away, human hands work tirelessly on humanity's last hope. Chapter 2: The Weight of Worlds. Icarus, too, drifts through the absoluteness of space with the patient grace of a cathedral built for the cosmos. This vessel, humanity's greatest engineering achievement, stretches nearly 2 kilometers from bow to stern, its hull crafted from materials that exist nowhere in nature. Titanium steel alloys reinforced with carbon nanotube matrices provide structure strong enough to withstand the gravitational stresses of solar approach, while layers of specialized shielding protect against radiation that would instantly incinerate unprotected human tissue. The ship's design reflects the marriage of necessity and impossibility that defines the entire mission. At its heart lies the payload, a fusion device whose destructive potential dwarfs every nuclear weapon ever created. Yet this is not a weapon, but a seed, carefully crafted to trigger the rebirth of stellar fire. The mathematics of its construction required new theorems in quantum mechanics, new understanding of how matter behaves under pressures that exist only in the cores of stars. Around this central purpose, the ship builds outward in concentric shells of life support, navigation, and propulsion. The crew quarters occupy a rotating section that provides artificial gravity through centrifugal force, a small concession to human biology in an environment where every ounce of mass must be justified. Gardens flourish under full-spectrum LED arrays, their green leaves a reminder of the world the 8 crew members have left behind. Captain Kaneda moves through these spaces with the measured stride of someone who carries the weight of human extinction on shoulders that never fully relax. Around 50 years old, with silver threading through black hair and lines etched by years of staring into the abyss of space, Kaneda represents the accumulated experience of humanity's most elite astronauts. Every decision flows through the filter of absolute responsibility, not merely for the 8 lives aboard Icarus II, but for every living thing in the solar system. The crew themselves represent humanity's finest, physicist astronauts selected not only for their technical expertise, but for their psychological stability under conditions that push human endurance beyond all previous limits. Dr. Searle, the ship's physicist, spends hours in the observation deck, studying the sun through filters that reduce its light to levels safe for human eyes. Even dimmed, the star fills the view with majesty that borders on the religious, a sphere of plasma larger than 1,000,000 Earths, its surface roiling with magnetic storms that could swallow continents. Navigator Trey calculates trajectories with precision measured in fractions of seconds and kilometers. At the speeds Icarus II must achieve, even tiny errors compound into mission failure. The ship follows a carefully plotted course that balances fuel efficiency with the brutal reality of time. Earth's ecosystems will not wait for a leisurely approach. Every calculation carries the weight of urgency. Every course correction represents another day stolen from a dying world. In the engineering sections, Mechanic Mace tends to systems that operate at the very limits of human technology. The fusion engines that propel Icarus II generate temperatures comparable to those in stellar cores, contained within magnetic bottles that require constant adjustment and monitoring. A single malfunction could either strand the ship in the void or vaporize it in an instant of uncontrolled fusion. The responsibility requires the kind of focused attention that monks once brought to meditation, absolute presence in each moment, complete awareness of the delicate dance between order and chaos. Communications. Officer Harvey maintains the tenuous link between Icarus II and Earth, though the vast distances involved mean that radio signals take increasingly long to traverse the emptiness. Conversations with home become exercises in patience, each exchange separated by minutes that stretch into hours as the ship ventures deeper into the solar system. These delays serve as a constant reminder of the growing isolation, the way distance itself becomes an enemy that threatens to sever the crew's connection to everything they seek to save. Dr. Corazon tends the ship's oxygen garden, a closed ecological system that must sustain 8 human lives for months of travel. Each plant serves as both practical necessity and psychological anchor, proof that life continues, that growth remains possible even in the harsh environment of space. The subtle fragrances of growing things provide sensory connection to Earth, while the plants themselves scrub carbon dioxide from the air and replenish the oxygen that human lungs require. Psychiatrist Searle observes not only the sun, but the crew, watching for signs of psychological stress that could compromise the mission. The human mind, evolved for life on a single planet, struggles with the realities of deep space travel. Isolation, confinement, and the knowledge of humanity's dependence on their success create psychological pressures unlike anything humans have previously experienced. Each crew member must be monitored, supported, guided through the mental challenges that threaten to destroy the mission from within. If this gentle vision of the cosmos soothes the mind, consider resting here more often. Subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts in the comments. A quiet echo beneath the stars. Chapter 3. Echoes of the First Journey. 7 years before Icarus II began its lonely journey through the void, another ship had undertaken the same impossible mission. Icarus I, crewed by 8 souls equally dedicated to humanity's salvation, had vanished somewhere in the space between Earth and Sun, leaving behind only silence and the gradual darkening of the star they sought to save. The disappearance of Icarus I represents more than the loss of human lives, though each of those 8 deaths weighs heavily on the conscience of those who planned both missions. The first ship had carried with it humanity's initial attempt at stellar resurrection, a fusion device nearly identical to the one now traveling aboard Icarus II. With its loss, the margin for error had vanished completely. Earth possessed neither the time nor the resources to construct a third payload, to train a third crew, to mount a third desperate gambit against extinction. Mission planners had obsessed over every detail of Icarus I's disappearance, analyzing the last communications, studying telemetry data, running simulations to understand what might have gone wrong. The possibilities ranged from mechanical failure to psychological breakdown, from navigation errors to the simple, overwhelming hostility of space itself. Each theory pointed to modifications in Icarus II's design, changes in crew selection and training, adjustments to procedures and protocols. Yet as Icarus II penetrates deeper into the solar system, approaching the point where its predecessor vanished, the crew finds themselves living with questions that have no answers. Did Icarus I's fusion engines fail, leaving the ship drifting powerless in the void? Did solar radiation overwhelm their shielding, slowly killing the crew as they struggled to complete their mission? Or did something more subtle destroy them? The psychological pressure of carrying humanity's fate, the isolation of deep space, the gradual erosion of hope as Earth grew smaller behind them. The silence itself becomes a presence aboard Icarus II, an invisible crew member that haunts every corridor and chamber. In the observation deck, where crew members gather to stare at the sun's dimming glory, conversations inevitably turn to speculation about their predecessors. Did Icarus I's crew stand in a similar chamber, watching the same star, feeling the same mixture of awe and terror as they approached their destiny? Did they maintain their faith in the mission until the end? Or did doubt gradually corrode their resolve? Captain Kaneda carries the additional burden of having known Icarus I's captain personally. They had trained together, shared the impossible responsibility of leading humanity's last hope, discussed the technical and psychological challenges they would face. In quiet moments, Kaneda stares into space and wonders whether his counterpart is still out there somewhere, frozen in the absolute cold of the void, or whether Icarus I met a more violent end in the chaotic magnetic fields that surround the sun. The crew's psychiatrist pays particular attention to how the mystery affects each individual's psychological state. Some find comfort in the idea that Icarus I might have succeeded, that their own mission serves as backup rather than humanity's sole remaining chance. Others are haunted by the implications of failure, the possibility that whatever destroyed the first ship might be waiting to claim the second as well. Navigation becomes an exercise in navigating not just physical space, but psychological terrain as well. The projected course of Icarus II passes close to several possible locations where Icarus I might have met its fate. Should they deviate from their carefully calculated trajectory to search for wreckage? The fuel costs would be enormous, potentially compromising their ability to reach the sun. Yet the knowledge that 8 fellow humans might be drifting helpless in the void creates a moral weight that threatens to tear the crew apart. As days pass and the sun grows larger in their forward viewports, the question of Icarus I's fate becomes more than academic curiosity. The missing ship might hold vital information about conditions near the solar surface, about the behavior of their fusion payload under extreme conditions, about the practical challenges of their shared mission. Every piece of data could prove crucial to success or failure. The ship's communication systems continuously scan radio frequencies, listening for any signal that might originate from Icarus I. Space is vast, and radio waves weaken rapidly with distance, but the hope remains that somewhere in the electromagnetic spectrum, a message might be waiting. A final transmission from brave souls who attempted the same impossible task. Now, close your eyes and picture how all of this might look. 2 ships separated by years and millions of kilometers, each carrying the same desperate hope, while between them stretches the infinite darkness that swallows light and life with equal indifference. Chapter 4. The Mathematics of Dying Stars. Within the ship's laboratory, equations flow across holographic displays like poetry written in the language of physics. Dr. Searle, the mission's chief physicist, studies stellar models that attempt to capture in mathematical form the complex processes occurring within the sun's core. Each equation represents years of theoretical work, decades of observation, centuries of accumulated human understanding about how stars live and die. The fundamental problem lies in understanding why the sun has begun to fail prematurely. Stars like the sun should burn steadily for approximately 10 billion years, fusing hydrogen into helium in a process so stable that it has supported life on Earth for nearly half that span. The nuclear reactions occur under conditions so extreme that they exist nowhere else in the solar system. Temperatures of 15 million degrees Celsius, pressures 300 billion times greater than Earth's atmosphere. Under normal circumstances, these reactions proceed at precisely the rate needed to balance the sun's own gravitational collapse. Each helium nucleus created in the fusion process releases energy that eventually reaches the solar surface as light and heat. The delicate equilibrium between inward gravitational pull and outward radiation pressure maintains the star's structure across billions of years, a stability so profound that ancient astronomers assumed the sun was eternal. Yet something has disrupted this ancient balance. The computer models suggest several possibilities, each more troubling than the last. Perhaps the sun's core temperature has dropped below the critical threshold needed to sustain fusion reactions. Perhaps magnetic fields deep within the star have altered the flow of convection currents that carry energy outward. Perhaps the fundamental constants of physics themselves have begun to shift in ways that make stellar fusion less efficient. The mathematics required to model these processes pushes human understanding to its limits. Each calculation must account for quantum mechanical effects, relativistic corrections, magneto-hydrodynamic interactions, and dozens of other factors that influence stellar behavior. The equations themselves fill volumes, their solutions requiring computational resources that tax even the most advanced systems available to humanity. Dr. Searle spends hours studying these models, searching for clues that might improve their chances of success. The fusion device carried by Icarus II has been designed based on theoretical predictions about the sun's internal structure. But the margin for error remains discouragingly small. The payload must detonate at precisely the right moment, in precisely the right location, with precisely the right energy distribution to trigger the revival of stellar fusion. The device itself represents a fusion of human ingenuity and cosmic forces. Conventional nuclear weapons derive their power from either fission or fusion reactions that last microseconds, releasing enormous energy in an uncontrolled explosion. The stellar bomb aboard Icarus II must accomplish something far more subtle. Initiate a controlled chain reaction that will propagate throughout the sun's core, reigniting the nuclear furnace without destroying the star itself. The engineering challenges alone would have been impossible just decades earlier. The fusion fuel consists of isotopes that must be maintained at temperatures approaching absolute zero, contained within magnetic bottles that require superconducting coils cooled to even lower temperatures. The triggering mechanism must function reliably under conditions that would instantly vaporize conventional electronics. Radiation levels millions of times higher than anything encountered on Earth's surface. Even more challenging are the questions of timing and placement. The device must be delivered to the sun's core at precisely the moment when local conditions are optimal for igniting sustained fusion reactions. Too early, and the explosion might dissipate harmlessly into space. Too late, and the sun's continued decline might make revival impossible. The window of opportunity, measured against the vast timescales of stellar evolution, lasts mere minutes. The crew regularly gathers to review the physics behind their mission, not only to refine their approach, but to maintain their psychological connection to the scientific foundation of their desperate gamble. Understanding the equations provides a form of comfort, a sense that their mission rests on solid theoretical ground rather than mere hope. Each parameter has been calculated and verified, each assumption tested against observational data. Yet uncertainty remains. The sun's internal structure can only be inferred from surface observations and theoretical models. The behavior of matter under the extreme conditions found in stellar cores remains largely theoretical, based on laboratory experiments that can approximate but never fully replicate the environment they seek to manipulate. Their fusion device will operate under conditions that no human-built technology has ever experienced. Dr. Searle often stands before the observation port, watching the sun's surface through specially filtered viewing systems. Even from their current distance, the star's disk fills a significant portion of the sky, its surface alive with magnetic storms and plasma fountains that dwarf entire continents. Solar prominences arch thousands of kilometers into space, guided by magnetic field lines invisible to human eyes, but powerful enough to deflect charged particles across interplanetary distances. The spectral analysis reveals the sun's declining health in wavelengths of light, imperceptible to human vision. Specific absorption lines indicate the temperature and composition of different layers within the stellar atmosphere. The subtle Doppler shifts of these lines reveal the motions of plasma currents deep beneath the visible surface. Each observation adds another piece to the puzzle of stellar resurrection, another constraint on the equations that will determine humanity's fate. Chapter 5. The Signal from the Void. In the deep silence of space, where no medium exists to carry sound and electromagnetic radiation travels at the absolute speed limit of the universe, the detection of any artificial signal becomes an event of profound significance. The communication systems aboard Icarus II, designed to maintain contact with Earth across vast distances, operate in a realm where radio waves weaken according to the inverse square law. Doubling the distance reduces signal strength by a factor of 4. It begins as an anomaly in the background radiation, a pattern too regular to be natural, yet too faint to be immediately recognizable. Communications Officer Harvey, monitoring the ship's receiver arrays during a routine communications window with Earth, notices the deviation from the normal spectrum of cosmic radio sources. The signal appears intermittent, buried in the electronic noise that fills the electromagnetic spectrum, but its mathematical signature suggests artificial origin. The discovery process unfolds with methodical precision. Harvey isolates the signal frequency, applies filters to reduce background interference, and gradually reveals a pattern that sends ice through the veins of every crew member who witnesses it. The transmission consists of brief, regularly spaced pulses, the unmistakable rhythm of a distress beacon designed to be recognized across the vastness of space. More disturbing than the existence of the signal is its origin point. Triangulation using Icarus II's multiple antenna arrays indicates that the transmission comes from a region of space along their projected course, somewhere between their current position and the sun. The signal strength and characteristics match exactly those that would be expected from Icarus I's emergency beacon, if that ship were still operational after 7 years in the void. Captain Kaneda convenes the crew in the ship's central conference compartment, where holographic displays show their current trajectory, the estimated position of the signal source, and the complex calculations required to modify their course. The mathematics of orbital mechanics, unforgiving in their precision, reveal the cost of investigation, fuel reserves that might be needed for their primary mission, time that Earth's dying biosphere cannot spare. Yet the moral calculus proves even more complex than the physics of interplanetary navigation. If Icarus I remains intact, its crew might still be alive, sustained by emergency life support systems designed to function for years in the deep cold of space. The knowledge and experience of 8 additional crew members could prove invaluable to the mission's success. Their ship might carry backup equipment, redundant systems, even a second fusion device that could double humanity's chances of stellar resurrection. Alternatively, the signal might represent nothing more than automated systems continuing to function long after their human operators have perished. Icarus 1 might be a tomb drifting through space, its distress beacon a futile cry from the dead. Investigating could cost precious fuel and time, while providing no benefit to their mission. Dr. Searle performs detailed analysis of the signal characteristics, comparing them to the technical specifications of Icarus 1's communication systems. The frequency, pulse duration, and modulation patterns match the expected parameters precisely, suggesting that the beacon operates exactly as designed. However, the signal strength indicates significant damage to the transmission system, perhaps the result of solar radiation, micrometeorite impact, or system degradation over years of operation. The crew splits into factions based on their interpretation of duty and probability. Some argue that their obligation to humanity supersedes concern for the crew of Icarus 1, that any deviation from their optimal course represents a betrayal of Earth's trust. Others contend that the knowledge and resources potentially available on the first ship justify the risk of investigation. Navigator Trey calculates multiple trajectory options, each representing a different balance between investigation and mission efficiency. A minimal course correction would bring Icarus 2 close enough to obtain detailed sensor readings of the signal source, while consuming relatively little additional fuel. More aggressive maneuvers could enable boarding and inspection of Icarus 1, if indeed that ship proves to be the source of the transmissions. The psychological impact of the discovery cannot be ignored. Dr. Corazon, the ship's psychiatrist, observes increased stress levels throughout the crew as they grapple with the implications of their choice. The knowledge that fellow humans might be dying slowly in the void while Icarus 2 passes by creates emotional pressure that threatens to interfere with judgment and decision-making. Time itself becomes an enemy in the debate. Each hour of discussion represents distance traveled at tremendous velocity, making course corrections progressively more expensive in terms of fuel consumption. The signal continues its patient repetition, neither growing stronger nor fading, a constant reminder of the choice that cannot be postponed indefinitely. If this gentle vision of the cosmos soothes the mind, consider resting here more often. Subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts in the comments. A quiet echo beneath the stars. Now, close your eyes and picture how all of this might look. A faint electronic whisper crossing the emptiness between worlds, carrying within its simple pattern the weight of human lives and impossible choices. Chapter 6: The Weight of Proximity. As Icarus 2 continues its gradual approach toward the inner solar system, the sun's influence begins to manifest in ways that challenge both human physiology and technological systems. The inverse square law that governs radiation intensity means that each kilometer closer to the stellar surface brings exponentially increasing exposure to energies that exist nowhere else in human experience. The ship's radiation shielding, designed by the finest engineers on Earth, consists of multiple layers of specialized materials. Lead and tungsten provide protection against gamma rays and high-energy particles. Hydrogenated plastics absorb neutron radiation that could gradually transmute the ship's structural materials into radioactive isotopes. Magnetic field generators create a protective bubble around the crew compartments, deflecting charged particles that would otherwise penetrate conventional shielding. Yet even these advanced defenses cannot completely eliminate the growing radiation environment. Dosimeters throughout the ship register steadily increasing background levels as solar output, already diminished compared to the sun's historical norm, still represents an energy source millions of times more powerful than anything humans have created. Each crew member wears personal radiation monitors that provide continuous assessment of their cumulative exposure. Dr. Searle spends increasing amounts of time in the observation deck, studying the sun through progressively darker filters as its apparent size grows larger in the forward viewports. The star's surface, invisible to unprotected human eyes at this proximity, reveals intricate structures when viewed through specialized instruments. Granulation patterns, each cell larger than entire countries on Earth, mark convection currents that transport energy from the stellar interior to space. Sunspots, cooler regions where intense magnetic fields inhibit convection, appear and disappear in cycles that reflect the complex dynamics of stellar magnetism. Solar prominences, vast arcs of plasma guided by magnetic field lines, stretch hundreds of thousands of kilometers above the photosphere. These structures, beautiful when viewed from Earth-based telescopes, represent magnetic storms more violent than anything that occurs in terrestrial weather. The plasma temperatures within prominences exceed 1 million degrees Celsius, hot enough to instantly vaporize any material substance yet confined and shaped by magnetic forces that follow mathematical laws of elegant complexity. The ship's navigation systems require constant recalibration as solar gravity increasingly dominates their trajectory. Newton's law of universal gravitation, precise in its mathematical description of attractive forces, dictates that Icarus II's velocity must be carefully managed to avoid either falling into the sun or escaping into interplanetary space. The ship's fusion engines, operating at a fraction of their maximum capacity to conserve fuel, provide thrust vectored to maintain their planned approach corridor. Heat management becomes an increasingly critical concern as they advance deeper into the solar system. Despite the sun's diminished output, proximity compensates for reduced luminosity, creating thermal loads that push the ship's cooling systems toward their design limits. Radiator panels extend from the hull like metallic wings, dissipating waste heat into the vacuum of space through infrared radiation. The temperature differential between the ship's sunward and shadow sides creates thermal stresses that require careful management to prevent structural damage. The crew's daily routines adapt to the changing environment, as solar proximity affects both technology and human biology. Sleep cycles adjust to account for increased radiation exposure, with crew members spending more time in the heavily shielded interior compartments. Medical monitoring intensifies as Dr. Corazon watches for early signs of radiation sickness. Nausea, fatigue, decreased white blood cell counts that could indicate dangerous exposure levels. Psychological pressures also intensify as the sun grows larger in their field of view, transforming from a distant star into an overwhelming presence that fills an ever-increasing portion of the sky. The human mind, evolved under the gentle warmth of solar radiation filtered through Earth's atmosphere, struggles to process the reality of approaching humanity's parent star directly. Some crew members report dreams filled with fire and light, while others experience claustrophobia as the vast emptiness of space gradually gives way to the sun's dominating presence. Communication with Earth becomes increasingly problematic as solar radiation interferes with radio transmissions. The plasma environment surrounding the sun acts as a natural jamming system, scattering electromagnetic waves and introducing static that gradually overwhelms their ability to maintain clear contact with mission control. This growing isolation, adds another layer of psychological stress as the crew realizes their increasing dependence on their own judgment and expertise. The ship's computer systems require enhanced protection as they venture deeper into the radiation environment. Cosmic rays, high-energy particles accelerated by processes throughout the galaxy, become more problematic as the sun's weakened magnetic field provides less deflection of these interstellar visitors. Each high-energy impact on the ship's electronic systems risks causing data corruption or component failure that could compromise critical mission functions. Equipment inspections reveal the gradual toll that space travel exacts on human technology. Seals designed for the vacuum of space show signs of degradation under sustained radiation exposure. Electronic components operate closer to their thermal limits as cooling systems work harder to dissipate increasing heat loads. Even the most robust materials begin to show microscopic changes as atomic structures are gradually altered by sustained exposure to high-energy radiation. Chapter 7. The Discovery of Icarus 1. The moment of visual confirmation arrives without fanfare, revealed through the patient accumulation of sensor data rather than dramatic revelation. Icarus 2's telescopic imaging systems, scanning the region of space from which the distress signals originate, detect a metallic reflection against the cosmic background. A glint of sunlight from manufactured surfaces that could only indicate human presence in the void. Icarus 1 hangs motionless in space, its hull darkened by years of radiation exposure and micrometeorite impacts. The ship's orientation suggests a vessel adrift rather than under active control, tumbling slowly in the complex gravitational field created by the sun's massive presence. Solar panels that once provided supplementary power hang askew, their surfaces clouded by radiation damage that has reduced their efficiency to negligible levels. The discovery process unfolds with methodical precision as Icarus 2's crew conducts a comprehensive remote survey of their predecessor. High-resolution cameras reveal details that tell the story of Icarus 1's final days in space. Scorch marks on the hull indicate exposure to solar radiation beyond the protection of the ship's magnetic shielding. Micrometeorite craters suggest years of unprotected drift through the debris-filled environment of the inner solar system. Most significantly, the ship appears structurally intact. Whatever fate befell Icarus 1's crew did not involve catastrophic mechanical failure or violent destruction. The fusion engines remain attached to the main hull, their magnetic containment systems cold but undamaged. The payload bay, designed to carry humanity's first attempt at stellar resurrection, shows no signs of premature detonation or containment failure. Captain Kaneda faces the most difficult decision of his career as sensor data reveals tantalizing hints about conditions aboard the derelict ship. Thermal imaging suggests that some internal systems continue to operate, maintaining temperatures above the absolute cold of space in certain sections of the vessel. Electromagnetic sensors detect the faint signatures of electronic systems, possibly life support equipment still functioning after 7 years in the void. The mathematics of approach and docking present their own challenges. Icarus 1's tumbling motion requires precise calculation to predict its orientation at any given moment, while its degraded condition raises questions about the structural integrity of docking interfaces. Any attempt to make contact risks damage to both vessels, potentially compromising Icarus 2's ability to complete its primary mission. A boarding party consists of Captain Kaneda and 2 additional crew members, selected for their technical expertise and psychological stability. Dr. Searle brings his knowledge of the ship's scientific systems, while Mechanic Mace possesses the engineering skills needed to assess Icarus 1's condition. Each team member wears a pressure suit equipped with radiation shielding life support systems, and communication equipment designed to function in the harsh environment near the sun. The transfer between ships occurs through a carefully choreographed dance of orbital mechanics and human courage. Icarus II matches the derelict's rotation and approaches to within a few meters, close enough for the boarding party to traverse the gap using maneuvering units. The process requires precise timing as both vessels continue their inexorable fall toward the sun, their relative positions constantly shifting under the influence of solar gravity. The airlocks of Icarus I respond to manual override procedures, suggesting that electrical power remains available despite the ship's apparent abandonment. Emergency lighting flickers to life as the boarding party enters, revealing corridors that mirror those of their own vessel, but bear the unmistakable signs of prolonged crisis. Equipment lies scattered where it was dropped. Control panels show the scars of desperate repair attempts, and the air itself carries the stale odor of recycled atmosphere maintained by automated systems. The crew quarters tell a more disturbing story. Personal belongings remain undisturbed in some compartments, as if their occupants had simply stepped away temporarily. Other areas show signs of hasty packing, suggesting that some crew members had prepared for evacuation or transfer to another section of the ship. The absence of human remains creates more questions than it answers, leaving the boarding party to speculate about the fate of their 8 predecessors. Most critically, the payload bay confirms the presence of Icarus I's fusion device, humanity's first attempt at stellar resurrection, still secured in its protective housing and apparently undamaged by the ship's years of drift. The discovery doubles their chances of mission success, while raising complex questions about how to utilize 2 fusion devices in their desperate attempt to reignite the sun. The ship's computer logs provide fragmented insights into Icarus I's final operational period. Radiation exposure had gradually compromised electronic systems, creating data corruption that makes complete reconstruction impossible. However, the remaining entries suggest a crew struggling with equipment failures, psychological pressure, and the growing realization that their mission faced challenges beyond those anticipated by Earth-based planners. Now, close your eyes and picture how all of this might look. 2 ships united across the void by tragedy and hope, their human creators separated by time and space, but joined in the ultimate expression of species survival. Chapter 8: The Reckoning of Souls. Within the derelict corridors of Icarus I, the boarding party discovers evidence of humanity's capacity for both heroism and breakdown, under pressures that exceed all previous experience. The ship's psychological evaluation records, partially corrupted by radiation damage but still partially readable, reveal a crew that gradually succumbed to the isolation and responsibility of their impossible mission. Dr. Corazon's counterpart aboard Icarus I had documented the progression of psychological symptoms that began manifesting months into their journey. Sleep disorders became epidemic as crew members struggled with dreams of fire and failure. Interpersonal conflicts escalated as the stress of absolute responsibility eroded normal social inhibitions. Most troubling, several crew members began showing signs of what the ship's psychiatrist termed cosmic agoraphobia, a terror of the vast emptiness that surrounded their tiny vessel. The observation deck of Icarus I bears physical evidence of the crew's deteriorating mental state. Scratches in the reinforced viewing ports suggest desperate attempts to block out the sight of the approaching sun, while the deck itself shows damage from what appears to have been violent confrontation between crew members. The beauty that space holds for Earth-based observers had transformed into a source of existential terror for minds pushed beyond their evolutionary limits. Personal logs recovered from individual quarters reveal the gradual erosion of hope as technical problems multiplied faster than solutions could be implemented. Solar radiation had degraded electronic systems more rapidly than anticipated, creating cascading failures that overwhelmed the crew's ability to maintain their ship in operational condition. Each repair revealed two additional problems. Each system failure compromised another critical function. The final entries, recorded in the shaking hand of Captain Kaneda's counterpart, describe a crew torn between duty and survival. Some members advocated for immediate mission completion, arguing that their deteriorating condition made further delay impossible. Others pushed for a return to Earth, believing that Icarus I's damaged state made mission success unlikely, and that their experience could inform a better prepared second attempt. Most disturbing among the recovered documents are references to a crew member who had become obsessed with the sun itself, spending increasing amounts of time in the observation deck despite dangerous radiation levels. This individual, identified only by the initials PB in the remaining records, had begun to express beliefs that their mission represented not salvation, but sacrilege, an attempt to interfere with natural cosmic processes that should be allowed to proceed without human intervention. The psychological profiles suggest that this crew member had gradually convinced others to share these views, creating a faction within Icarus I that opposed completion of their mission. The final log entries describe confrontations between those who maintained faith in their purpose and those who had come to see their fusion device as an abomination that should never be deployed. The ship's medical bay tells its own story through empty pharmaceutical containers and improvised surgical equipment. Radiation exposure had taken its toll despite the ship's shielding, requiring increasingly aggressive medical intervention to maintain crew functionality. Burns from solar radiation, cellular damage from cosmic rays, and the psychological trauma of prolonged isolation had combined to create medical challenges that exceeded the ship's limited resources. In the central computer core, Mechanic Mace discovers evidence of deliberate sabotage. Critical navigation systems show signs of manual disconnection, while the ship's fusion engines bear marks of intentional damage that would have prevented controlled maneuvering. The pattern suggests systematic interference by someone with intimate knowledge of the ship's systems, sabotage from within rather than external failure. The payload bay reveals the most disturbing discovery of all. Icarus I's fusion device, humanity's first attempt at stellar resurrection, has been partially disassembled. Components lie scattered around the containment chamber, their precise arrangement suggesting careful rather than random dismantling. Someone aboard Icarus I had deliberately prevented the device from functioning, ensuring that their mission could never be completed. Captain Kaneda studies the sabotage with the methodical attention of someone whose own mission might depend on understanding his predecessor's failure. The disassembly shows sophisticated knowledge of fusion physics, indicating that one of Icarus I's scientific crew had turned against their purpose. The precision of the work suggests someone acting with full knowledge of the consequences, not temporary madness, but calculated decision. The boarding party conducts a systematic search for the crew of Icarus I, though the absence of human remains in the common areas suggests that their fate occurred elsewhere. Emergency evacuation procedures would have directed survivors to the ship's central refuge chamber, designed to provide maximum protection against radiation during solar proximity operations. The refuge chamber, when finally accessed through manually operated emergency locks, contains the answer to questions that have haunted the crew of Icarus II since their journey began. 8 acceleration couches bear the preserved remains of Icarus I's crew, their bodies protected from decomposition by the chamber's controlled atmosphere and low temperature. Each individual appears to have died peacefully, suggesting controlled termination rather than violent conflict. Personal effects found with the bodies tell the final chapter of Icarus I's story. Handwritten notes, immune to the electronic failures that had corrupted the ship's digital records, describe a crew that had chosen death over either mission completion or return to Earth. The psychological pressure of carrying humanity's fate, combined with growing technical failures and internal conflict, had proven more than human minds could bear. The notes reveal that the crew member responsible for sabotaging the fusion device had convinced others that their mission violated natural law, that humanity's attempt to reignite the sun represented cosmic hubris that would bring worse consequences than simple extinction. This individual, identified as the ship's physicist, Dr. Pinbacker, had gradually persuaded enough crew members to support mission termination through deliberate system failure. Yet even in their final decision, the crew of Icarus I had maintained concern for humanity's future. Rather than destroying their fusion device completely, they had merely disabled its triggering mechanisms. The components remain intact, capable of restoration by someone with appropriate technical knowledge. Their sabotage represented postponement rather than permanent prevention of stellar resurrection. Dr. Searle examines the technical specifications of Icarus I's fusion device, comparing its design to the payload carried by their own ship. The two devices, constructed using identical theoretical frameworks, could potentially be combined into a single weapon of unprecedented power. The mathematics of stellar ignition suggest that two fusion devices might succeed where one would fail, providing the energy density needed to trigger sustained nuclear reactions in the sun's deteriorated core. If this gentle vision of the cosmos soothes the mind, consider resting here more often. Subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts in the comments. A quiet echo beneath the stars. Chapter 9: The Mathematics of Resurrection. The decision to combine both fusion devices transforms Icarus II's mission from desperate gamble into calculated assault upon the fundamental forces that govern stellar death. Dr. Searle spends countless hours recalculating the physics of their enhanced payload, working through equations that describe the behavior of matter under conditions that exist nowhere else in the universe, except within the cores of dying stars. The mathematics reveal both promise and peril in their approach. Two fusion devices, detonated simultaneously, would release energy equivalent to several billion conventional nuclear weapons, enough to trigger fusion reactions throughout a significant volume of the sun's core. However, the precision required for proper deployment increases exponentially with the payload's destructive potential. A miscalculation measured in mere seconds or kilometers could transform their resurrection attempt into an explosion that would destroy the sun entirely. Mechanic Mace works methodically to restore Icarus I's sabotaged fusion device, rebuilding triggering mechanisms from spare components carried aboard Icarus II. The work requires absolute precision, as any error in the device's restoration could result in premature detonation that would vaporize both ships and their crews. Each connection must be verified multiple times, each component tested under conditions that simulate the extreme environment of solar proximity. The psychological impact of their discovery weighs heavily on Icarus II's crew as they process the implications of their predecessor's fate. Dr. Corazon observes increased stress levels throughout the ship as crew members grapple with the knowledge that 8 previous souls had faced the same impossible pressure and chosen death over completion of their mission. The specter of psychological breakdown haunts every conversation, every decision, every moment of doubt about their purpose. Captain Kaneda makes the difficult decision to jettison Icarus 1 after salvaging its fusion device and any useful components. The derelict ship represents both a source of valuable resources and a constant reminder of failure that threatens to undermine his crew's resolve. The controlled destruction of their predecessor's vessel eliminates the psychological burden while ensuring that no evidence remains of humanity's internal conflict over stellar resurrection. The combined payload requires modifications to Icarus 2's delivery systems that push the ship's engineering capabilities to their limits. The second fusion device must be integrated with their own weapon while maintaining the precise timing and positioning requirements that govern successful deployment. Navigation systems must be recalibrated to account for the increased mass and altered center of gravity that result from carrying humanity's doubled hopes. As Icarus 2 continues its approach toward the Sun, the star's influence begins affecting the ship's systems in ways that challenge every aspect of their technology. Magnetic fields generated by solar activity interfere with navigation instruments, creating errors that accumulate over time and threaten to compromise their final approach trajectory. Electronic systems operate at the edge of their thermal limits as cooling systems struggle to dissipate the increasing heat load. The crew's medical condition requires constant monitoring as radiation exposure approaches the limits of human tolerance. Dr. Corazon administers prophylactic medications designed to mitigate cellular damage while tracking each individual's cumulative dose through personal monitoring devices. Some crew members begin showing early symptoms of radiation sickness, fatigue, nausea, and decreased immune function that could compromise their ability to complete the mission. Solar prominences, visible now as towering arcs of plasma that dwarf terrestrial hurricanes, create navigation hazards that require constant course corrections. These magnetic storms launch charged particles at velocities approaching the speed of light, creating radiation bursts that could disable unprotected electronic systems. The ship's autopilot systems struggle to maintain their planned trajectory while avoiding the most dangerous regions of solar activity. The observation deck becomes a place of pilgrimage for crew members seeking to comprehend the magnitude of their destination. The Sun now fills most of the forward view, its surface alive with convection patterns and magnetic activity that reveal the complex dynamics of stellar physics. Granulation cells, each larger than continents, mark the endpoints of convection currents that transport energy from the nuclear furnace at the star's core to the visible surface. Communication with Earth becomes impossible as solar radiation overwhelms their transmission systems. The crew of Icarus 2 faces their final approach in complete isolation, cut off from the world they seek to save and dependent entirely on their own judgment and expertise. The silence of space becomes absolute, broken only by the electronic whispers of their ship's systems and the occasional burst of static from solar radio emissions. Dr. Searle conducts final calculations of their deployment strategy, working through scenarios that account for the Sun's current condition and the enhanced capabilities of their combined payload. The mathematics suggest multiple possible approaches, each balancing the probability of successful ignition against the risks of premature detonation or insufficient energy transfer. The choice of strategy will determine not only the mission's success, but the survival of humanity itself. Time becomes increasingly precious as thermal stresses begin affecting the ship's structural integrity. Metal expands and contracts under the extreme temperature variations between sunward and shadow sides, creating mechanical stresses that could eventually lead to catastrophic failure. The crew works with methodical urgency, knowing that their window of opportunity narrows with each passing hour. Chapter 10. The Heart of Fire. The final approach begins when the sun's gravitational field becomes the dominant force acting upon Icarus II, pulling the ship inexorably toward the stellar surface at velocities that transform physics from theoretical science into immediate survival challenge. Solar gravity, 28 times stronger than Earth's, creates tidal stresses that test every joint and weld in the ship's structure, while acceleration forces press against human bodies with crushing intensity. The sun's chromosphere, a layer of tenuous plasma extending thousands of kilometers above the visible surface, begins to interact with the ship's magnetic shielding in ways that create spectacular auroral displays within the crew compartments. Charged particles, accelerated to tremendous velocities by magnetic field interactions, paint the air with curtains of green and blue light that would be beautiful under other circumstances, but now serve as harbingers of the radiation storm surrounding them. Thermal management systems operate beyond their design specifications as they struggle to dissipate heat loads that increase exponentially with each kilometer of approach. Radiator panels glow cherry red as they attempt to shed waste heat into space, while interior temperatures rise despite the heroic efforts of the ship's cooling systems. The crew works in environments that push human tolerance to its limits, where brief exposure to unshielded surfaces could cause severe burns. The fusion devices, humanity's doubled hopes for stellar resurrection, require constant monitoring as thermal cycling threatens to compromise their delicate internal mechanisms. Superconducting components must be maintained at temperatures approaching absolute zero while external temperatures soar, creating engineering challenges that push cryogenic technology beyond all previous limits. Any failure of the cooling systems would render the weapons useless, transforming their mission from salvation attempt into elaborate suicide. Navigation becomes an exercise in controlled falling, as Icarus II follows a trajectory that balances gravitational acceleration against the precise positioning requirements for payload deployment. The ship's autopilot systems, designed for the relatively benign environment of interplanetary space, struggle to maintain course accuracy under the extreme conditions near the solar surface. Manual control becomes necessary as computer systems experience increasing errors from radiation-induced data corruption. Captain Kaneda assumes direct control of the ship's maneuvering systems, his hands steady on controls that determine the fate of every living thing in the solar system. Years of training and experience focus into this single task as he guides Icarus II through the final phase of humanity's most desperate gamble. Each course correction must account for gravitational effects, magnetic field interactions, and thermal expansion of the ship's structure. The crew prepares for payload deployment with methodical precision that masks the terror of their situation. Each individual focuses on specific tasks within the complex sequence of operations required to deliver their fusion devices to the sun's core. Communications between crew members take on the formal cadence of professionals executing procedures under conditions where any error means not just mission failure but the extinction of their species. Dr. Searle monitors the sun's internal structure using instruments that peer through the stellar surface into the nuclear furnace beneath. Neutrino detectors, sensitive to the ghostly particles produced by fusion reactions, provide real-time assessment of conditions within the core. The readings confirm their worst fears. Nuclear reactions continue to decline as the fundamental processes that have powered the sun for billions of years gradually shut down. The deployment sequence begins with separation of the fusion devices from Icarus II's main hull, a process that requires precise timing to ensure proper trajectory toward the sun's core. Magnetic launchers, powered by the ship's fusion reactors, accelerate the weapons to velocities that will carry them through the chromosphere and into the stellar interior. The mathematics of ballistics, become matters of species survival, as each calculation determines whether humanity lives or dies. The devices enter the sun's atmosphere as meteors of human creation, their protective casings designed to survive passage through plasma temperatures that exceed those found in any terrestrial furnace. Ablative shielding vaporizes in carefully calculated layers, protecting the fusion cores until they reach the precise depth required for optimal detonation. Timing mechanisms, hardened against electromagnetic interference and thermal shock, count down the final seconds toward ignition. The moment of detonation arrives not with sound, for no medium exists to carry acoustic waves, but with a flash of radiation that overwhelms every sensor aboard Icarus II. The fusion devices release their energy in a coordinated burst that sends shock waves racing through the sun's interior at speeds approaching that of light itself. For an instant, temperatures within the detonation zone exceed those found in the cores of the most massive stars in the galaxy. The shockwave propagates outward from the point of explosion, compressing plasma and heating it to the critical temperatures required for sustained fusion reactions. Nuclear processes that have remained dormant for months suddenly reignite as hydrogen nuclei find themselves compressed beyond the threshold needed for helium formation. The chain reaction spreads throughout the sun's core like wildfire, rekindling the stellar furnace that gives life meaning. Yet success remains uncertain for agonizing minutes as the crew of Icarus II waits for confirmation that their desperate gamble has succeeded. The sun's interior remains opaque to direct observation, concealing the results of their intervention behind layers of plasma too dense for visible light to penetrate. Only the patient accumulation of neutrino radiation will reveal whether they have saved humanity or merely postponed its extinction. The first indications of success come through subtle changes in the sun's magnetic field, as revitalized nuclear reactions begin restoring the complex equilibrium between gravitational collapse and radiation pressure. Solar prominences shift their configuration as magnetic field lines reorganize themselves around the renewed energy source. The star's surface temperature, measured through spectroscopic analysis, begins a gradual increase that suggests resumed nuclear activity. If this gentle vision of the cosmos soothes the mind, consider resting here more often. Subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts in the comments. A quiet echo beneath the stars. Epilogue: The Return of Light. In the hours following detonation, as Icarus II begins its long journey back toward Earth, the sun transforms from dying ember into renewed furnace, with changes that unfold across multiple wavelengths of electromagnetic radiation. The stellar resurrection manifests first in high-energy emissions invisible to human eyes, gamma rays and X-rays that indicate nuclear reactions proceeding at rates not seen for months. The crew watches through heavily filtered viewing systems as their parent star awakens from its premature decline. Solar wind, the stream of charged particles that flows constantly from the stellar surface, strengthens as revitalized fusion reactions provide the energy needed to accelerate plasma to escape velocity. This solar wind will eventually reach Earth, where it will interact with the planet's magnetic field to create auroral displays that herald humanity's salvation. The psychological impact of success proves as profound as the physical achievement itself. Crew members who have carried the weight of species extinction for months finally allow themselves to feel hope as confirmation of stellar ignition accumulates through their instruments. Sleep comes easier as dreams of fire and failure give way to visions of Earth's cities, illuminated once again by adequate sunlight. Communication with Earth remains impossible due to their proximity to the sun, but the crew knows that telescopes on their homeworld will soon detect the first evidence of stellar revival. Astronomers will observe increased luminosity in specific wavelengths, spectroscopic signatures that indicate resumed nuclear fusion, and the gradual brightening that will reverse Earth's descent into frozen extinction. The journey home stretches across months of interplanetary space, but Icarus II's crew travels with knowledge that their impossible mission has succeeded. Behind them, the sun burns with renewed vigor, its nuclear furnace restored to the stable operation that has supported life for nearly half the age of the universe. Ahead lies Earth, where 8 billion human souls await news of their salvation. In the ship's observation deck, where crew members gather to watch the slowly receding sun, conversations turn to the nature of human courage and the mathematics of hope. They have witnessed the revival of a star, participated in an act of cosmic engineering that challenges the fundamental forces of stellar evolution. Their success stands as testament to humanity's capacity for both scientific understanding and moral courage in the face of absolute extinction. The gardens aboard Icarus II flourish under full-spectrum LED arrays that simulate the sunlight they have helped restore. Green leaves and growing plants serve as living symbols of the life they have preserved, while the gentle fragrances of Earth flora provide sensory connection to the world that awaits their return. Each seed that germinates represents countless generations of human civilization that will now have the opportunity to exist. Dr. Searle continues his observations of the sun's recovery, documenting the gradual restoration of normal stellar behavior for scientific archives that will guide future understanding of stellar physics. The success of their mission opens new possibilities for human influence over cosmic processes, suggesting that sufficiently advanced technology might allow intervention in stellar evolution on scales previously considered impossible. As consciousness drifts toward the peaceful darkness of sleep, let the mind rest in the knowledge that even the most impossible challenges can yield to human determination and scientific understanding. In the vast cosmos where darkness and light wage eternal battle, 8 souls have struck a blow for illumination that will echo across the centuries. The sun burns steady and bright, its nuclear furnace restored to the patient rhythm that has sustained life since the beginning. In the gentle glow of renewed starlight, Earth turns in its ancient orbit, while humanity dreams of the day when science and courage combined to kindle hope in the heart of cosmic darkness. Sleep now, as starlight falls gently across the void, carrying within each photon the promise that light endures, that life continues, and that human ingenuity can triumph even over the death of stars. In the infinite cathedral of space, where silence reigns and galaxies turn in their stately dance, the rekindled sun stands as monument to the power of hope, made manifest through understanding, determination, and the willing sacrifice of those who choose to light candles rather than curse the darkness. Let these visions carry consciousness gently into dreams where stellar fire illuminates infinite possibilities, where the mathematics of physics become poetry written in the language of light itself, and where the boundaries between science and wonder dissolve in the face of cosmic beauty, too vast for human comprehension, yet small enough to hold in the space between one heartbeat and the next. The stars await, patient and eternal, as sleep descends like cosmic night across the landscape of awareness, bringing rest to minds that have traveled to the heart of the sun and returned with the gift of renewed light for all humanity. In dreams, the journey continues, carrying consciousness ever deeper into the gentle darkness where all stories end and all hope begins.